I've been doing a little research, and the next conclave actually looks like it's shaping up pretty well. I've done some research on the 22 cardinals who are considered papabile, basically the forerunners for the next conclave, along with some research on the 138 cardinal electors who will be deciding the next pope. There's actually something quite special about this group of cardinal electors, which give us solid grounds for hope. But before we begin, I'm going to give you a little bit of background. First, we have to look at what cardinals are. Then we need to look at how a pope is elected by cardinals. After this point, we can look at the cardinal electors and the 22 individuals who are papabile. The College of Cardinals holds a central role in the governance of the Catholic Church, particularly in electing the pope and advising him on matters of doctrine, discipline, and administration. Its origins and structure can be traced back to biblical precedents, the early church, and the evolution of ecclesiastical governance over the centuries. The roots of the cardinalate can be understood through both biblical and historical lenses. In the Old Testament, God appointed Moses as the leader of Israel, entrusting him with teaching divine law, leading religious feasts, and governing the people. To assist him, Moses established a hierarchical system, ordaining his brother Aaron as high priest, appointing 70 elders, and consecrating the Levites as priestly assistants. This structure found a parallel in the New Testament, when Jesus Christ established a new order. He appointed 12 apostles, giving them authority to preach, forgive sins, and celebrate the Eucharist. He also designated 70 disciples for certain ministerial functions. By the end of the first century, a three-tiered hierarchy of bishops, priests, and deacons was firmly established within the Church. St. Clement of Rome recognized a continuity between Old Testament priestly orders and the emerging church hierarchy. St. Jerome later reaffirmed this connection, comparing bishops, priests, and deacons to Aaronic priests and Levites. From these origins, the Pope's closest collaborators, his cardinal assistants, were drawn from these three orders. Over time, this developed into three ranks of cardinals: cardinal bishops, cardinal priests, and cardinal deacons. The structure of the cardinalate took form in Rome, where the Pope required trusted advisors and delegates to assist in pastoral, doctrinal, and liturgical duties. The origins of cardinal deacons date back to St. Peter, who, according to tradition, ordained 7 deacons for the Diocese of Rome. These deacons played an essential role in assisting the Pope, particularly in liturgical functions, charity, and administration. By the 3rd century, Rome was divided into 7 deaconries, each overseen by a cardinal deacon, who distributed alms and managed church affairs. Pope St. Gregory the Great formalized the cardinal deacon's role, placing them above ordinary deacons. In later centuries, their jurisdictional authority expanded, and by the Council of Trent they were granted quasi-episcopal status. However, by the 20th century, their rank became more honorary, and Pope St. John XXIII decreed that all cardinals be at least ordained priests, making the position of cardinal deacon largely symbolic. St. Peter's successors recognized the necessity of an established priesthood to assist in governing Rome. Pope St. Cletus is said to have ordained 25 priests to oversee the growing number of Christians in the city. These priests became known as titular priests, responsible for Rome's parish churches. By the 4th century, the term cardinal priest was reserved for senior priests who administered sacraments, advised the Pope, and participated in doctrinal discussions. Today, most cardinals belong to this rank, reflecting their historical role as the Pope's chief clergy. The first bishops of Rome established dioceses surrounding Rome to assist in pastoral governance. By the time of Pope Leo IV, the bishops of these sees were officially designated cardinal bishops, recognizing their special relationship with the papacy. By the 12th century, these bishops were the preeminent members of the College of Cardinals. The Cardinal Bishop of Ostia was given the honor of consecrating a new pope, a tradition that continues today. Over the centuries, the cardinals took on an increasing role in papal governance. By the early Middle Ages, they were referred to as the Senate of the Church, acting as chief advisors to the Pope. The term College of Cardinals emerged around the 12th century, reflecting their corporate role in church leadership. While originally their functions were primarily based in Rome, cardinals began to exercise greater influence over the global church, with many serving as bishops of major metropolitan sees or leading Vatican dicasteries. The most significant role of the College of Cardinals is electing a new pope. Since the 11th century, only cardinals have had the right to participate in papal conclaves. Today, only cardinals under the age of 80 are eligible to vote. Many cardinals serve in the Roman Curia, leading Vatican dicasteries that oversee various aspects of church governance, doctrine, liturgy, and discipline. Some hold prestigious positions, such as Cardinal Secretary of State, which oversees the Church's diplomatic affairs, the Prefect of the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith, which ensures doctrinal fidelity, and the Prefect of the Dicastery for Bishops, which aids in the appointing of bishops worldwide. A majority of cardinals are archbishops of major dioceses, such as Milan, Paris, and New York. Cardinals have long been recognized as princes of the Church. The color red symbolizes their willingness to defend the faith, even to the point of martyrdom. This tradition dates back to Pope Innocent IV, who granted cardinals the privilege of wearing red hats. Today, their formal attire includes a red cassock and biretta, signifying their readiness to serve Christ and His Church. In summary, the College of Cardinals is one of the most enduring institutions in the Catholic Church. With origins in both Scripture and early church governance, the Cardinalate has evolved to become a vital component of papal elections and church leadership. While its structure has changed over the centuries, the essential mission remains the same: to assist the Pope in governing the universal Church, safeguarding doctrine, and ensuring the continuity of apostolic succession. The men who wear the red hat do so as a sign of their solemn commitment to the service of Christ and His people. As mentioned above, one of the most important roles of the cardinals is electing a new pope, which happens in what is called a conclave. In the earliest centuries of the Church, the election of a pope was a much simpler process, one that directly involved the clergy and even the laity of Rome. The faithful would gather and acclaim a new pope by popular vote, much like how bishops were chosen in various regions of the early Christian world. However, this practice was vulnerable to outside manipulation, political interference, and even mob rule. In some cases, rivaling factions backed competing candidates, leading to schisms, contested elections, and violence. Recognizing the need for a more orderly process, the Church gradually refined the rules governing papal elections. The first major reform came in 1059, when Pope Nicholas II restricted voting rights to cardinal bishops, while still requiring their decision to be ratified by the clergy and people of Rome, as well as the Holy Roman Emperor. By the late 12th century, under Pope Alexander III, the voting was extended to include all three orders of cardinals: cardinal bishops, cardinal priests, and cardinal deacons, while also introducing the requirement of a two-thirds majority to ensure broad consensus. One of the most significant reforms came in 1274, following the longest papal election in history, which lasted nearly 3 years. To prevent such long delays, Pope Gregory X introduced the concept of the conclave, requiring cardinals to be locked in seclusion until a new pope was chosen. Over time, additional security measures were introduced, including strict secrecy rules and safeguards against external interference. The papal election process begins immediately after the death or resignation of a pope. This period, known as sede vacante, is marked by the temporary leadership of the Church by the College of Cardinals, under the guidance of the Camerlengo, the cardinal responsible for administering the Vatican until a new pope is elected. The Camerlengo's first duty, upon a pope's death, is to officially verify the death, traditionally done by tapping the deceased pope's forehead 3 times with a silver hammer and calling out his name. After this, the pope's fisherman's ring, the symbol of his authority, is destroyed to prevent forgery. The Vatican then enters a period of mourning, and cardinals from around the world begin making their way to Rome for the general congregations, meetings in which they discuss the state of the Church and prepare for the conclave. If the Pope resigns, as in the case of Pope Benedict XVI in 2013, the process follows a similar pattern, but with less uncertainty surrounding the transition. The conclave must begin no earlier than 15 days and no later than 20 days after the seat becomes vacant, giving the cardinals ample time to arrive and deliberate. Once the date of the conclave is set, strict security measures are put in place to ensure absolute secrecy. The Sistine Chapel, where the election takes place, is swept for electronic devices, and jammers are installed to block all outside communication. The cardinals, numbering no more than 120 electors under the age of 80, take an oath of secrecy before the conclave begins. On the morning of the first day, the Mass is celebrated at St. Peter's Basilica. That afternoon, the cardinal electors process into the Sistine Chapel. After a final exhortation, the doors are closed and the conclave begins. Each cardinal elector takes an individual oath, swearing to uphold the secrecy of the proceedings and to vote according to his conscience. Once the oath is completed, all non-electors leave, and the cardinals are sealed inside. The actual voting takes place in several rounds over the coming days. Each cardinal writes down the name of his chosen candidate on a ballot, stating before God that he is voting for the person he believes should be the next pope. The ballots are then collected and counted by hand, with the names being read aloud. For a valid election, a candidate must receive 2/3 of the votes. In the past, popes could be elected by simple majorities after several rounds of voting, but Pope Benedict XVI reinstated the traditional 2/3 requirement in 2007 to ensure a broad consensus. If no candidate reaches the required majority after 3 days of voting, the cardinals pause for a day before resuming. After each vote, the ballots are burned. If no pope has been elected, black smoke rises from the Sistine Chapel's chimney, signaling to the world that the deliberations continue. However, when a new pope is finally chosen, the ballots are burned with a chemical additive to produce white smoke, the long-awaited sign that a successor to St. Peter has been chosen. Once a candidate receives the necessary votes and accepts his election, the senior cardinal deacon asks him, "By what name shall you be called?" The new pope chooses a regnal name. The cardinals then pledge their obedience to the new pope, and he is led to the Room of Tears, where he dons the white papal vestments for the first time. Shortly thereafter, the proto-deacon of the College of Cardinals steps onto the central balcony of St. Peter's Basilica and proclaims the Habemus Papam. The new pope then emerges onto the balcony and gives his first public blessing. Now that we understand what cardinals are and how the conclave works, what makes this conclave special? Unlike other groups of cardinals, due to a number of different factors, especially Pope Francis's desire to appoint more cardinals from the peripheries of the world, these clerics are not too familiar with each other, which could mean that we might get a surprising option for the next pope. One needs to remember that for a cardinal to be eligible to vote, he has to be less than 80 years old. Interestingly, many of the liberal picks from Pope Francis in the last 3 consistories have been over the age of 80 or near the age of 80. Beside this fact, the appointment of true progressives have actually been quite few. According to a surprisingly good analysis on Rarati Celi, around 40 or so cardinal electors are true progressives, with the remaining cardinals a mix of those who are true conservatives and those who are pastorally soft yet conservative doctrinally. Most of the appointments who are eligible to vote are quite orthodox options, but with less conventional pastoral styles, the so-called street priests. These defend the traditional teachings of the Church quite strongly, but can be a bit soft pastorally. This faction would never vote for a radical progressive. So, contrary to popular expectation, there's really almost no chance that we can get somebody who is heterodox. There are 22 different cardinals that are commonly referred to as papabile, that is, those cardinals that are commonly recognized as forerunners in the conclave. With each of these cardinals, I'm going to go through some basic biographical details, and then get into some of their controversial opinions on issues like the traditional Latin Mass to get a better idea of which side they lean. For ease of organization, I'm going to go youngest to oldest, beginning with Cardinal Pizzaballa, who is 59 years old, and ending with Cardinal Bagnasco, who is 82 years old. Before I begin, I would like to thank collegeofcardinalsreport.com for providing me with basically all of the information to make this video possible. Many of the biographical notes for these cardinals ended up being summaries of the extensive information they provide on their website. If you want more info about the conclave or any of the cardinals, be sure to check it out. The first candidate is Cardinal Pizzaballa. Born on April 21st, 1965 in Italy, he was made a cardinal quite recently in the year 2023 by Pope Francis. From a young age, Pizzaballa felt a strong call to the priesthood. At 11, he joined the minor seminary in Rimini, managed by the Franciscans, where he developed an interest in missionary work, initially aspiring to serve in China. He continued his religious education in Ferrara and entered the Order of Friars Minor in 1984. After completing his novitiate and professing his solemn vows in 1989, he was ordained a priest on September 15, 1990. Shortly after his ordination, Pizzaballa was assigned to the Studium Biblicum Franciscanum in Jerusalem to pursue studies in biblical theology. His arrival in Jerusalem coincided with the First Intifada. Despite initial cultural and linguistic challenges, he immersed himself in his studies, eventually enrolling at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem from 1995 to 1999. There, as the sole Christian in his program, he deepened his understanding of Judaism and modern Hebrew, contributing to the editing of the Roman Missal in Hebrew and translating various theological texts. In 1999, Pizzaballa formally joined the custody of the Holy Land, the Franciscan jurisdiction in the Middle East. He served as Vicar General for Hebrew-speaking Catholics and became the superior of the monastery of Saints Simeon and Anne in Jerusalem in 2001. His role involved welcoming pilgrims and fostering interreligious dialogue, particularly between Christian and Jewish communities. At the age of 39 in 2004, Pizzaballa was appointed as the custody of the Holy Land, a position he held for 12 years. During his tenure, he prioritized engaging with the Jewish community and encouraged young Franciscans to learn local languages. His leadership extended to participating in significant interfaith initiatives, including organizing a 2014 meeting at the Vatican Gardens with Pope Francis, the Israeli president, a Palestinian leader, and the Ecumenical Patriarch of Constantinople. After concluding his service as Custos in 2016, Pizzaballa was appointed as the Apostolic Administrator of the Latin Patriarchate of Jerusalem, later becoming the Latin Patriarch in 2020. His leadership was marked by efforts to address administrative challenges within the Patriarchate and to promote unity among the region's Christian communities. In recognition of his service, Pope Francis elevated him to the College of Cardinals on September 30th, 2023, making him the first Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem to be appointed as a cardinal. Shortly after his elevation, the region experienced renewed conflict between Israel and Hamas. Cardinal Pizzaballa responded by calling for peace and expressing willingness to offer himself in exchange for hostages. He also coordinated humanitarian efforts, including a joint mission with the Order of Malta to provide aid in Gaza. Unfortunately, little is known about his theological positions, although there are signs that he is more of a traditionalist. Liturgically, he is quite traditional. As the College of Cardinals website notes, quote, "The Patriarch normally uses the Latin language for solemn celebrations, and when he took possession of his titular church, he offered the Mass ad Orientem. The Cardinal is extremely proud of the standard of liturgical celebration in the Basilica of the Holy Sepulchre, with its solemn celebrations of the Mass and the Liturgy of the Hours, alongside the liturgies which accompany the solemn entry of the Patriarch on great feasts. He himself is a dignified celebrant, attentive to the rubrics and the particular chants of the Basilica's distinctive liturgical rites." End quote. Besides this, he is always careful to make the traditional Latin Mass available to those who desire it, including a weekly celebration for Austrian pilgrims. The former patriarchal vicar for Hebrew-speaking Catholics in the Latin Patriarchate of Jerusalem noted, quote, "The Cardinal is very meticulous in liturgical celebration and has no problem with the traditional Mass." End quote. Yet his traditionalism seems more totalizing than simply favoring the TLM, including on issues like the reception of the Eucharist on the tongue, fasting, Eucharistic adoration, and the suspension of the Mass during COVID. Beside this, he has also emphasized the importance of Catholic action in politics and the continual education of adults. He is strongly opposed to any attempts at the ordination of women as clerics. Further, his views on interreligious dialogue are quite developed and quite orthodox. For example, he said, quote, "It's not true that we're all the same and that the religions are all equal. It's very true in Jerusalem, and it's something that in Jerusalem no one wants to hear." End quote. Further, he recognizes the crisis in the Church, commenting that we live in, quote, "times of great disorientation and confusion." He even felt free to critique the usefulness of the Synod on synodality. Administratively, he is quite apt, completely restructuring his patriarchate and solving many of its financial difficulties. Overall, Pizzaballa seems like a great pick, somewhat of a classic Italian choice. Overall, non-controversial, yet traditional where it counts, obedient, a good administrator, and careful about his media presence. Beside all this, he is quite principled, which can be seen in his response to the conflict in Gaza. Despite being close with many of the leaders of Israel for many decades, he has been one of their sharpest critics recently. Next, we have Cardinal Tolentino. Born on December 15, 1965 in Portugal, he was made a cardinal in the year 2019 by Pope Francis. His early childhood was spent in Angola, where his father worked as a fisherman. While there, he witnessed a murder, an event that left a lasting impact. His family returned to Portugal in 1975 amid the decolonization process following Portugal's April Revolution. He entered the minor seminary after returning to Portugal and later earned a theology degree from the Catholic University of Portugal in Lisbon in 1989. Ordained a priest the following year, he served briefly in pastoral ministry before his academic pursuits led him back to Lisbon. He completed a master's degree in biblical sciences at the Pontifical Biblical Institute in Rome in 1992 and later earned a doctorate in biblical theology in 2004. At the Catholic University of Portugal, he served as an assistant professor from 1996 to 1999, later becoming a full professor. He was appointed vice rector in 2012 and dean of the Faculty of Theology in 2018. His influence extended beyond Portugal, with visiting professorships at institutions in Brazil, as well as a research fellowship at NYU from 2011 to 2012. Alongside his scholarly work, he played a prominent role in the Church's engagement with modern culture. He served as the first director of the National Secretariat for Culture under the Portuguese Bishops' Conference from 2004 to 2014, fostering dialogue between the Church and contemporary society. Although under the authority of the bishops, he was widely seen as the driving force behind its initiatives. In 2018, Pope Francis invited him to preach the Lenten spiritual exercises for the Roman Curia, a prestigious assignment signaling papal favor. Shortly afterward, he was appointed archivist and librarian of the Holy Roman Church and elevated to the rank of archbishop. The following year, he was made a cardinal and given key roles in several Vatican dicasteries. In 2022, Francis appointed him prefect of the dicastery for culture and education. Now, here's the beginning of the bad news. He is one of the worst candidates. He has drawn criticism for his openness to controversial figures and ideas, particularly regarding homosexuality and feminist theology. As an example, the College of Cardinals report website states, quote, "In the 2010s, he aligned himself with Spanish sister Marie Teresa Forcades Vila, a progressive Benedictine with radical stances on issues such as abortion. She opposes legislation banning abortion and says all women should carry the morning after pill in their purses, women's ordination, homosexuality, and same-sex couples adopting children. She's a self-confessed proponent of a queer revolution in the church." Tolentino wrote the foreword to the Portuguese edition of her earlier volume, Feminist Theology and History. He praised it as an astonishing work and stressed how her apostolate must be taken as a model to free Christianity from the dogmatic bounds of the past and the present. End quote. Yet it is hard to pin him down. While he stresses agreement with the Church's position on female clerics, he aligns himself with groups that do not agree with the Church's position. He also has ambiguity on the issue of priestly celibacy. He has openly critiqued conservatives and traditionalists in the Church, including his brother cardinals. Beside this, he has almost no administrative experience, and any experience he does have has been openly critiqued. As the College of Cardinals report website stated, quote, "The cardinal reportedly has rather poor administrative skills, which were evident during his tenure as head of the Portuguese Pontifical College, and later in his years in university administrative. A brilliant mind he may have, but it is one more given to study and literature than to the smooth running of institutions," said one source close to him. End quote. Next, we have Cardinal Ambongo, born on January 24th, 1960 in the Congo. He was made a cardinal in the year 2019 by Pope Francis. He is known for his strong political engagement and general conservatism. He grew up in a large Catholic family with 11 siblings. His father worked as a rubber tree tapper. After studying philosophy, he joined the Capuchin Friars Minor in 1981, professing final vows in 1987. He was ordained a priest in 1988 and soon became a professor. His studies in moral theology took him to the Alfonsian Academy in Rome, where he defended his dissertation in 1995. His academic career continued at the Masnod Institute, where he taught moral theology until 2005. His pastoral leadership began when St. John Paul II appointed him bishop in 2004. He later became an archbishop in 2016. His leadership was further recognized when Pope Francis made him a cardinal in 2019 and later appointed him to the College of Cardinals. Since February 2023, he has served as president of the Symposium of Episcopal Conferences of Africa and Madagascar. Beside being a clear leader of African Catholicism, he is also known for being the main opponent to the president of the Congo, His activism has made him a target, with Congo's public prosecutor accusing him of seditious behavior in early 2024, a charge later dismissed by the local episcopate. He staunchly upholds Catholic moral teachings, defending family, priestly celibacy, and even resisted the implementation of fiducia supplicans, securing an exemption for African bishops from Rome. He seems to be overall a mixed bag. He stated that the Church in Africa has no particular difficulty with studying the issue of female deacons. He has also not allowed for the Latin Mass to be celebrated in his diocese, yet has praised the Zaire rite. Beside this, he has seemingly made contradictory statements about the necessity of conversion for salvation. For example, he stated, quote, "We will hold on to our Catholic identity, but that does not mean we do not want others. We are Catholics and we want to be Catholics. Let Protestants be Protestants and Muslims be Muslims. We're going to work with them, but everyone has to keep their own identity." End quote. Next we have Cardinal Sturla. Born on January 4th, 1959 in Uruguay. He was made a cardinal in the year 2015 by Pope Francis. He is a staunchly Orthodox prelate who has fought to preserve the faith in Uruguay, a country with a long history of aggressive secularization. Tragedy struck early in his life with the death of his father in 1972 and his mother 3 years later, forcing his older siblings to support the family. Sturla was educated in Salesian institutions, where he later entered religious life, professing vows in 1980. Ordained in 1987, he took on numerous roles within the Salesian order, including Vicar of the Salesian Novitiate and Master of Novices. From 2008 to 2011, he served as Provincial of the Salesians in Uruguay. His rise through the church was swift. In 2011, Pope Benedict XVI appointed him Auxiliary Bishop of Montevideo, and in 2014, Pope Francis named him Archbishop, granting him the pallium later that year. Within a year, he was created a cardinal and appointed to multiple Vatican dicasteries, including those of consecrated life, evangelization, divine worship, and the Pontifical Commission for Latin America. Sturla has been a fierce defender of Catholic identity in Uruguay, where the Church has faced an uphill battle against secularization for over a century. In 2014, when Sturla had to battle local authorities simply to erect a public statue of the Virgin Mary, where families gathered to pray the Rosary. He is much in the line of Benedict XVI. He sees Vatican II as a continuation of tradition rather than a rupture, and warns against the Church's self-secularization. While he emphasizes the importance of reaching those distant from the Church, he insists that evangelization must maintain a clear Catholic identity. He believes that without the centrality of Christ in the sacraments, the Church risks becoming a merely humanitarian organization. Though he shares Pope Francis' concerns about neo-Gnosticism and neo-Pelagianism, Sturla is skeptical of the modern emphasis on synodality. He opposes fiducia supplicans and is firm in upholding the Church's moral teachings on life and family. For him, the Church's mission must focus on restoring faith in divine revelation, sin, and salvation. A Sturla papacy would likely mark a return to a Benedict XVI or St. John Paul II style leadership. Sturla seems like an excellent choice as to orthodoxy, although his administrative skills have not been tested as strongly as others. He has been clear in critiquing what us Zoomers describe as cringe forms of worship, although he has not addressed clearly the issue of the TLM and has positively spoken about the liturgical reform. Next, we have Cardinal Aveline, born on December 26, 1958 in Algeria, of French descent. He was made a cardinal in the year 2022 by Pope Francis and is rumored to be Pope Francis's favorite. He comes from a family of European settlers in Algeria, forced into exile after the country's independence in 1962. His early years were marked by instability, as his family moved from place to place before settling in Marseille in 1965. This formative experience left him with a lifelong concern for migrants and the displaced. He studied at the seminary in Avignon before completing his theological studies in Paris. He also studied philosophy at the Sorbonne. Ordained a priest in 1984, he quickly gained a reputation as an intellectual. He earned a doctorate in theology with a focus on the Christology of religions and became involved in higher education. In 2008, Benedict XVI appointed him to the Pontifical Council for Interreligious Dialogue, recognizing his expertise in the field. In 2014, after serving as Vicar General, he was consecrated an auxiliary bishop. He succeeded Archbishop Pontier in 2019, and Pope Francis created him a cardinal in 2022. His elevation was seen as ushering in a new Francis-aligned leadership in the French Church. Aveline is a staunch advocate of migration policies and interfaith dialogue, particularly between Christians and Muslims. His pastoral experience in a city with a strong Muslim presence has shaped his views, emphasizing dialogue and mutual respect over conversion efforts. Francis even considered appointing him prefect of the dicastery for interreligious dialogue, but ultimately chose not to. His theological approach favors viewing religious diversity as a mystery rather than a challenge to be resolved. Politically cautious, Aveline avoided taking definitive stances on controversial church issues like women's ordination, priestly celibacy, or communion for the divorced and remarried. While often associated with the progressive wing of the church, he maintains a consensus-driven style. He supports radical decentralization of church government. Despite his generally progressive leanings, he has shown openness towards traditional Catholics. He celebrated the Latin Mass after Traditionis Custodes and helped mediate tensions between a traditionalist French bishop and the Vatican. Vocations in his diocese have slightly declined since 2019, but not dramatically. He seems like an overall mixed option, supporting women in liturgies and being open to changing the discipline on clerical celibacy, yet opposing fiducia supplicans and supporting the TLM. He has also been more conservative in his rhetoric against secularism and radical Islam than others, saying, quote, "Citizens of France, let us be vigilant. Let's not let emotion overwhelm reflection. Let's not let fear extinguish hope. Let us not bend the knee before the idols of today, neither before the threatening terror of Islamism, that ideology disguised as religion, nor before the provocative demands of secularism." End quote. Next, we have Cardinal Tagle. Born on June 21st, 1957, in the Philippines, he was made a cardinal in the year 2022 by Pope Benedict XVI. Tagle quickly rose through academic and ecclesiastical ranks. He earned a doctorate in theology from the Catholic University of America, focusing on episcopal ecclesiality and St. Paul VI's teaching. His dissertation aligned him with the Bologna School, which sees Vatican II as a rupture from the past. He later served on the editorial board of History of Vatican II. After returning to the Philippines, he served as Episcopal Victor for the Religious and as pastor of Imus Cathedral. St. John Paul II appointed him Bishop of Imus in 2001, and a decade later, Benedict XVI named him Archbishop of Manila. His growing theological influence included serving on the International Theological Commission and the Federation of Asian Episcopal Conferences. In 2012, Benedict XVI made him a cardinal, accelerating his rise to global prominence. Under Pope Francis, Tagle became a key figure in Rome, participating in several synods and leading Caritas Internationalis from 2015 to 2022. His elevation to prefect of the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples in 2019, followed by his promotion to Cardinal Bishop in 2020, signaled his status as a potential papal contender. However, in 2022, Pope Francis unexpectedly removed him from Caritas, leading to speculation about a decline in his favor within the Vatican. Tagle is a skilled communicator, known for his emotional preaching, casual demeanor, and ability to connect with young people. Despite his affable personality, he is a quite shrewd negotiator who understands church politics well. On moral issues, Tagle's positions appear somewhat ambiguous. While he opposed the Filipino reproductive health bill that promoted anti-family policies, he did so with less force than other bishops. He upholds church teaching against abortion and euthanasia, but has suggested that universal moral principles may not apply in all cases, particularly concerning communion for cohabitating couples and issues of homosexuality. He discourages harsh language about sin, emphasizing mercy and cultural shifts in moral sensibilities. He is a vocal advocate for social justice, ecology, and interreligious dialogue, but his participation in the controversial 2019 Pachamama ritual in the Vatican Gardens and his statements on the goodness of all religions raise questions about his theological vision. His support for Francis's pastoral approach makes him a strong continuity candidate for those favoring a progressive direction. Tagle is one of the most internationally connected cardinals. If the conclave seeks a pope from the global south who embodies Francis's priorities with a softer, more diplomatic touch, Tagle remains a formidable candidate, though his recent setbacks in Rome suggest his path to the papacy is less certain than it once was. While he has not made any direct statements on controversial issues, he has been indirectly involved, such as on the issue of female deacons, where he was involved in the commission which opposed them. He has also been ambiguous on homosexual issues, clerical celibacy, the TLM, and Humanae Vitae. He is often seen as very familiar to Pope Francis. Next, we have Cardinal Brislin. Born on September 20, 1956 in South Africa, he was made a cardinal in the year 2023 by Pope Francis. He received his early education at Catholic schools before pursuing studies in psychology at the University of Cape Town, philosophy at St. John Vianney Seminary in Pretoria, and theology at the Missionary Institute of Mill Hill in London. He later completed his priestly formation at the University of Louvain and was ordained in 1983. Brislin's ecclesiastical career progressed steadily. In 2007, Pope Benedict XVI appointed him Bishop of Kunstad, and in 2009 he was named Archbishop of Cape Town. His influence grew further when he served as president of the South African Catholic Bishops' Conference, during which time he participated in the 2014 and 2015 synods on the family. In 2023, Pope Francis elevated him to the College of Cardinals and later appointed him Archbishop of Johannesburg in 2024. A key figure in South African Catholicism, Brislin is known for his advocacy on issues such as poverty, corruption, and ethical leadership. He has also shown a special care for migrants. His engagement in global church affairs includes his 2018 visit to Gaza as part of the Holy Land Coordination, an international effort to promote peace. Additionally, he has led multiple pilgrimages through Europe and the Holy Land. Doctrinally, Brislin leads towards the classically liberal wing of the Church. He has been notably welcoming towards individuals experiencing same-sex attraction and allowed a dissident group advocating for women's ordination and married clergy back into the archdiocese after previously banning them. Despite his long tenure in Cape Town, priestly vocations remain stable, while numbers of male and female religious drop significantly, by about a third. He downplays his own significance on the global stage. When asked in 2023 about his prospects as a papal candidate, he dismissed the idea, stating he lacked the worldwide experience of more prominent cardinals. While Brislin's leadership skills and social commitment are well respected, his relatively low profile on the world stage and his own admission of lacking global influence make him an unlikely papal candidate. He is a difficult figure to pin down, and there is not much detail about particular positions he takes, although it is important to note that his administrative skills have been criticized. He has taken strong stances against contraception and in support of chastity, yet seemed ambiguous on homosexual issues. Next, we have Cardinal Zuppi. Born on September 11, 1955, in Italy, he was made a cardinal in the year 2019 by Pope Francis. Born into a family with deep Vatican ties, his father, Enrico, was a journalist appointed by the future St. Paul VI as an editor, while his mother was the niece of a cardinal, who was the former prefect of the Congregation for Bishops and dean of the College of Cardinals. Zuppi was educated in central Rome, where he met Andrea Riccardi, founder of the Sant'Egidio movement, an influential lay community dedicated to social justice, interreligious dialogue, and peace efforts. He became deeply involved in Sant'Egidio, later describing it as another gospel in another church. He earned a literature and philosophy degree in 1977 and studied theology at the Pontifical Lateran University while in seminary. He was ordained a priest in 1981. Zuppi quickly rose through the church ranks, taking on multiple roles, including rector and head of a diocesan priestly council. In 1992, he played a key role in Sant'Egidio's mediation of the Mozambique peace accords, which ended a brutal civil war. His involvement earned him honorary citizenship in the country. Benedict XVI granted Zuppi the honorary title of chaplain to His Holiness in 2006 and appointed him auxiliary bishop of Rome in 2012. Pope Francis then named him Archbishop of Bologna in 2015 and was made cardinal in 2019. Zuppi has since become one of Italy's most influential church leaders, serving as president of the Italian Bishops' Conference since 2022. Zuppi's ecclesiology is deeply shaped by the Second Vatican Council, emphasizing a church engaged with the modern world. He believes the church must listen again to the many questions of the world, prioritizing mercy, social justice, and religious pluralism. Known as a street priest, he has worked extensively with marginalized communities, including the homeless, immigrants, and those struggling with addiction. He also strongly advocates for integrating divorced and remarried Catholics and homosexual individuals into the church, without clearly emphasizing the need for conversion. A firm supporter of Pope Francis' vision, he has been an active participant in Vatican synods and views synodality as essential for renewing the Church. While he aligns with the political left and his connections to socialist movements, he maintains dialogue with conservatives and has even celebrated the traditional Latin Mass on occasion. His ability to navigate ecclesiastical and political landscapes has made him a leading papal contender, while his supporters see him as a pragmatic reformer who can engage the complexities of the modern world. Critics argue he embodies a clever, modernist ambiguity that lacks doctrinal clarity. He has become known for his organizational abilities and use of the media. Zuppi has taken a number of controversial progressive-leaning stances, including being ambiguous on the ordination of women, the blessing of homosexual unions, priestly celibacy, and other issues. His close ties to the Sant'Egidio movement and to progressive political parties makes him one of the worst candidates on the list. Next, we have Cardinal Parolin. Born on January 17, 1955 in Italy, he was made a cardinal in the year 2014 by Pope Francis. What is most notable about him is that he has been Vatican Secretary of State since 2013 and is a seasoned diplomat. Born to a devout Catholic family, his early life was marked by tragedy when his father died in a car accident when he was just 10. Feeling called to the priesthood from a young age, he entered seminary at 14 and was ordained in 1980. He then studied canon law at the Gregorian University in Rome while training for the Vatican Diplomatic Service. Parolin's diplomatic career began in 1986 with assignments in Nigeria and later Mexico, where he helped reestablish diplomatic ties between the Holy See and the Mexican government. In 1992, he was recalled to Rome to work in the Secretariat of State, overseeing relationships with Spain, Italy, and San Marino. By 2002, he had become Undersecretary for Relations with States, handling delicate negotiations with Vietnam, North Korea, Israel, and China. Appointed Nuncio to Venezuela in 2009 and ordained a bishop by Benedict XVI, Parolin spent 4 years in Venezuela before Pope Francis recalled him to Rome, naming him Secretary of State in 2013 and elevating him to Cardinal in 2014. Since then, he has been one of the most powerful figures in the Vatican, advising the Pope on church governance and global diplomacy, while remaining a key member of the Council of Cardinals. Parolin is widely respected as a skilled negotiator, with secular diplomats praising his discretion and pragmatism. However, his legacy is closely tied to the controversial 2018 Sino-Vatican Agreement, which allows Beijing a role in appointing Catholic bishops. Though the deal has been renewed multiple times, it has faced heavy criticism, particularly from Cardinal Joseph Zen and persecuted Catholics in China, who accused the Vatican of capitulating to the Communist Party. Parolin, however, insists that patience is required for long-term progress. Other controversies surround his tenure, including the controversy with the Order of Malta and the London property deals. Doctrinally, Parolin aligns with the Francis vision of a decentralized synodal church. He opposes the traditional liturgy and favors a new paradigm of ecclesiastical governance. He also faced scrutiny for ambiguous statements on contraception. During the COVID-19 pandemic, he enforced one of the world's strictest vaccine mandates in the Vatican. Parolin is often compared to Pope St. Paul VI due to his diplomatic background and pragmatic approach. Despite occasional tensions with Pope Francis, Parolin has remained in this position longer than most curial officials, a testament to his adaptability and influence. While he lacks pastoral experience, he is considered a leading continuity candidate if the conclave seeks a more diplomatic and measured successor to Francis, someone who would continue his reforms, but with a quieter and more strategic approach. He has taken strong stances against female ordination, calling it non-negotiable, has supported clerical celibacy, opposed contraception, and has opposed the German bishops. Yet, he has taken strong stances against the TLM. Overall, he's a relatively okay choice, although not perfect. Next, we have Cardinal Eijk. Born on June 22, 1953, in the Netherlands, he was made a cardinal in the year 2012 by Pope Benedict XVI. Cardinal Eijk, Archbishop of Utrecht, has emerged as one of the best candidates amongst the Papabile, a hero to many who oppose the secularization of Europe, a man who has been a constant defender of not only the religious character of European nations, but also the national and ethnic character. Born in 1953 to a Protestant father and a Catholic mother, he initially pursued medical studies at the University of Amsterdam, before discerning a call to the priesthood. Ordained in 1985, he later obtained advanced degrees in moral theology, philosophy, and theology from Rome's Angelicum and Lateran universities. His expertise in bioethics shaped his early career. He taught moral theology in the Netherlands and Switzerland, co-founded an association promoting Catholic medical ethics, and served on the International Theological Commission from 1997 to 2000. In 1999, he was ordained bishop in a diocese deeply affected by secularization. His tenure was marked by difficult decisions, including parish closures, but he remained steadfast in his mission. Appointed Archbishop of Utrecht in 2007 and created a cardinal by Benedict XVI in 2012, he became a leading voice for Catholic orthodoxy in Europe. He supports Vatican II, but insists on continuity with tradition, emphasizing Eucharistic devotion, Marian piety, and family catechesis. Though Dutch vocations declined initially under his leadership, they have stabilized over the last decade, despite the country's strong secularist currents. A strong pro-life advocate, he has addressed bioethical issues with clarity, opposing euthanasia, IVF, and contraception. He defends humanae vitae, upholds traditional marriage, and opposes same-sex blessings, though with characteristic diplomacy. He affirms the Church's teaching on an all-male celibate priesthood and has spoken frankly about the challenges posed by Islam and mass migration, balancing compassion for refugees with the duty to uphold national and Christian identity. He avoided involvement in the debate over restricting the traditional Latin Mass, preferring to focus on reverence in the liturgy more broadly. There are many attractive qualities to Eijk as Pope, and no immediate concerns. Not only does he have pastoral and administrative experience, he is also strongly prepared to take the traditional position on the most pressing issues, such as immigration and the new biomedical moral challenges. He honestly has some banger quotes as well. For example, when asked about the ordination of women, he said, quote, "Young people do not come to church to discuss the ordination of women, because that is a topic from the 1960s that no longer interests them at all. They come to pray," end quote. When criticized for celebrating Mass ad Orientem, he said, quote, "I do not celebrate Mass with my back to the people. I say it by turning my face towards Christ, toward the tabernacle, so that, together with the people, we are truly turned toward Christ. I no longer celebrate with my back turned to Christ, but looking at Christ, who is present under the sacrament of the Eucharist in the tabernacle," end quote. He also has come out in support of clerical celibacy and against the blessings of homosexual couples. He called humanae vitae prophetic. He is also quite frequent in references to hell in his sermons and catechesis, calling men to do penance. He has stood up against the pressures of secular society in ways that few have been able to. When appointed as bishop, there were frequent calls for criminal prosecution to be taken against him due to his opposition to homosexuality. In response, he said, quote, "The Catholic Church has an ethical vision that is not always understood in today's culture," end quote. There were protests of his consecration as bishop, and important dignitaries refused to attend. An article on Eijk stated his views like this, quote, "Eijk is not opposed to the death penalty, has doubts about ecumenism, believes that the harm Catholics did to Jews during the war is often greatly exaggerated, strongly adheres to church hierarchy, and considers homosexuality a neurosis," end quote. Beside all this, he understands the way that mass media, especially social media, works quite well, launching a Twitter campaign for vocations all the way back in 2009. Next, we have another excellent choice, Cardinal Erdő. Born on June 25, 1952, in Hungary, he was made a cardinal in the year 2002 by Pope St. John Paul II. He has become known as a strong choice for his canonical and theological work, along with his pastoral experience. Born in 1952 into a devout Catholic family, he grew up under communist rule and suffered early hardship when his home was burned down in the 1956 Hungarian uprising. Despite experiencing discrimination for his faith, he pursued priestly formation and was ordained in 1975, believing that helping others to attain salvation was his highest calling. After 2 years of parish service, he was sent to Rome, earning degrees in theology and canon law from the Pontifical Lateran University. He later taught in Hungary and abroad, including in Buenos Aires and at the Gregorian and Lateran universities in Rome. His scholarly output is immense, with over 250 articles and 25 books, and he has received numerous academic honors, including honorary doctorates from prestigious institutions. St. John Paul II consecrated Erdő as a bishop in 2000 and appointed him Archbishop of Budapest in 2003. That same year, he was elevated to the College of Cardinals, making him one of the youngest cardinals at the time. He later served as president of both the Hungarian Episcopal Conference and the Council of European Episcopal Conferences, to which he was re-elected in 2011. Pope Francis entrusted him with key roles in the 2014 and 2015 synods on the family. He strongly upholds Catholic doctrine, including the indissolubility of marriage, humanae vitae, and traditional moral teachings. While he supports pastoral accompaniment for the divorced and remarried Catholics, he insists it must not compromise church teaching. He opposes same-sex unions while advocating for pastoral care for those experiencing same-sex attraction. Liturgically, he favors the post-Vatican II Mass, but has shown tolerance for the traditional Latin Mass, making no public statement on traditiones custodes. He firmly defends priestly celibacy and the hierarchy of the Church. Erdő takes a strong stance on immigration, balancing Christian solidarity with concerns for political stability. A cautious and methodical leader, he is widely respected for his intellect, administrative competence, and fidelity to doctrine. The late Cardinal George Pell saw him as an ideal papal candidate, particularly for his ability to restore canonical discipline in the Vatican. On a practical level, Erdő even surpasses Parolin in administrative skill, and his over 20 years as a cardinal surpasses every other candidate on our list. Beside this, he is an expert canonist. Generally, Erdő is a JP2 conservative, fully supportive of the Second Vatican Council. He is a strong supporter of celibacy and honestly one of the best, if not the best option. Next is Cardinal Koch. Born on March 15, 1950 in Switzerland, he was made a cardinal in the year 2010 by Pope Benedict XVI. Born in 1950 to a merchant family, he developed an early interest in theology. He studied in Munich, earning a doctorate focusing on Protestant theology. After this, he became a professor of dogmatics and ecumenical theology. Ordained a priest in 1982, Koch balanced pastoral work with theological research. He was appointed Bishop of Basel in 1995, consecrated personally by St. John Paul II. During his tenure, he continued to publish theological works and served as president of the Swiss Bishops' Conference from 2007 to 2009. In 2010, Benedict XVI called him to Rome, appointing him president of the Pontifical Council for Promoting Christian Unity and elevating him to the cardinalate. His role was reaffirmed under Pope Francis. Koch has played a leading role in ecumenical dialogue, notably at the 2016 Catholic Lutheran commemoration of the Reformation. In 2024, he oversaw a study on papal primacy in a synodal context, reflecting his cautious openness to change, while maintaining a firm grasp of church tradition. He has been vocal in his skepticism of the German synodal way, warning against its potential to fracture church unity. Though initially supportive of optional priestly celibacy and women's ordination, Koch has since abandoned these positions, aligning with the papal priorities of the moment. This ability to separate personal views from his official role is seen as both a strength and a weakness, demonstrating loyalty but raising concerns about his doctrinal convictions. Liturgically, Koch emphasizes the centrality of the Eucharist, but views the TLM as an obstacle to unity. His intellectual background, steeped in German theological thought, makes him a measured and diplomatic figure. Overall, he is not the worst candidate, but certainly suspect on many grounds, including his shifting opinions on doctrinal issues. It is hard to tell how he would act given the responsibility to make the decisions. He has supported a synthesis between the TLM and Novus Ordo, which is an interesting idea. He has also supported other aspects of liturgical conservatism. Beside this, he is very critical of Protestants. As the College of Cardinal report states, quote, "However, unlike many Catholic German bishops and elements in German Protestant circles, the Cardinal did not view the celebrations as a joyous event, pointing to the disaster brought to the Catholic Church by Martin Luther's 95 Theses in 1517. According to Cardinal Koch, the commemoration of the 500th anniversary of Luther's revolt should be essentially penitential, culminating in a confession of guilt on both the Catholic and Protestant sides. We cannot celebrate sin, he said in Vienna." End quote. He has also commented on the Church's mission to the Jews, stating that, quote, "There is only one way to salvation, which God has revealed to us in Jesus Christ." But he is quite confusing on how he states his positions, writing, quote, "We Christians don't have to bear witness to the Jews about a way that would be completely foreign to them, as is the case with followers of other religions. This is because the New Testament is built entirely on the basis of the Old Testament. The Catholic Church, therefore, does not carry out an organized mission to the Jews, as some Protestant evangelical groups do. On the other hand, we, as Christians, also bear witness to the Jews to the hope that faith in Christ gives us." End quote. Beside this, he has made other suspect statements, such as saying that, quote, "Jesus Christ is the new way of salvation. However, this does not mean that the Torah is diminished or no longer recognized as the way of salvation for Jews." End quote. He has also been quite critical of the SSPX. Next is Cardinal Arborelius. Born on September 24th, 1949 in Switzerland to Swedish parents, he was made a cardinal in the year 2016 by Pope Francis. Born to Lutheran parents, he converted to Catholicism at age 20 and joined the Discalced Carmelites in Sweden in 1971. He took perpetual vows in 1977 and was ordained a priest in 1979. In 1998, Pope St. John Paul II appointed him Bishop of Stockholm, making him the first ethnic Swedish Catholic bishop since the Reformation. For nearly 3 decades, he has led the only Catholic diocese in Sweden, overseeing the church in an overwhelmingly secular society. He served as president from 2005 to 2015 and vice president in 2015 of the Scandinavian Episcopal Conference, and was a member of the Pontifical Council for the Family from 2002 to 2009. Pope Francis elevated him to the cardinalate in 2017, the first from Sweden. Arborelius is an expert in spirituality, having earned a degree from the Carmelite Pontifical Theological Faculty. He is also a member of multiple Vatican dicasteries, including those for bishops, clergy, Oriental churches, Christian unity, and the Council for the Economy. In 2022, he was honored by the King of Sweden for his contributions to church life. Doctrinally, he is firmly Orthodox, defending priestly celibacy, opposing women's ordination, and upholding Catholic moral teaching on sexuality and gender. He has publicly criticized the German synodal way and warned against politicizing the church by creating ideological labels like traditional or liberal Catholicism. Nevertheless, he has accommodated the traditional Latin Mass where appropriate, while remaining committed to the post-Vatican II liturgy. His approach to interreligious dialogue is balanced. He promotes engagement with other faiths, but firmly opposes non-Catholics receiving the Eucharist. He aligns with Pope Francis on migration, advocating for the integration of Muslim immigrants, despite Sweden's social unrest due to mass immigration. He also supports international legal measures against ecocide, reflecting his concern for environmental issues. Despite Sweden's deep secularization, Arborelius' tenure has seen a slight rise in vocations and church attendance, thanks in part to immigration. He maintains a humble, reflexive persona, emphasizing silent prayer in the Carmelite tradition of interior contemplation. Widely respected for his gentle but firm adherence to church teaching, he has won admiration even from non-Catholics for his calm demeanor in debates with atheists. Though he dismisses the idea of being pope as unrealistic, Arborelius' combination of humility, theological depth, and pastoral leadership makes him a respected figure in the church. Despite being a very holy cleric, it is not always the best to have a saint on St. Peter's throne, as the example of Pope St. Celestine V illustrates quite clearly. He frequently mentions his own lack of skill in administration. Beside this, he also has a multiculturalist approach to the immigration question, contra the more balanced approach of Eijk or Erdő. In my opinion, he is not the worst choice, but is also not necessarily the best choice. Next is Cardinal Bo. Born on October 29, 1948 in Myanmar, he was made a cardinal in the year 2015 by Pope Francis. He was raised in a devout Catholic family of 10 children. His father died when he was 2, and 5 of his siblings died young. His faith was nurtured by his mother, and further strengthened by his education at a Salesian boarding school. Bo entered the Salesian seminary in 1962 during Myanmar's descent into military dictatorship. He was ordained a priest in 1976 and served in ethnic regions marked by civil war, learning local languages to minister more effectively. He was appointed apostolic prefect of Lishio in 1986, becoming its first bishop when the diocese was established in 1990. That same year, he founded the Congregation of St. Paul's Brothers and Sisters to evangelize remote areas. After serving as Bishop of Pathin from the years 1996 to 2003, He was appointed Archbishop of Yangon, the country's largest diocese. In 2015, Pope Francis created Bo, Myanmar's first cardinal. He served as president of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of Myanmar and led the Federation of Asian Bishops' Conferences from the years 2018 to 2024. While deeply loyal to both Benedict XVI and Francis, he has carefully navigated the sensitive geopolitical issues, strongly criticizing the Chinese Communist Party, while refraining from public opposition to the Vatican-China Accords. While he is usually quite vanilla in his public statements, as the College of Cardinal report states, quote, "Those who know Bo well say he is not in favor of ordaining women priests, making priestly celibacy optional, and blessings of same-sex couples, but he has spoken little, if at all, about these issues, as they are not generally issues for the Church in Myanmar, and because he prefers to focus on justice and peace in such a conflict-ridden and repressed nation, all issues that are priorities for his public statements." End quote. While it's not entirely clear how he would govern as Pope, he seems like an overall solid choice, and there are no red flags in what is publicly available about him. Next is a familiar face, Cardinal Burke. Born on June 30th, 1948, in Wisconsin, he was made a cardinal in the year 2010 by Pope Benedict XVI. There is already a massive amount of information on Cardinal Burke, and he is already a familiar figure, so I will keep it brief. After studying at the Catholic University of America, he was sent to Rome, where he earned degrees in theology and canon law at the Pontifical Gregorian University. Ordained in 1975 by Pope St. Paul VI, he returned to the United States for pastoral and curial work before being called back to Rome in 1989 to serve as defender of the bond at the Apostolic Signatura, the Church's highest court. In 1995, Pope St. John Paul II appointed him Bishop of La Crosse, where he founded the Shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe. In 2003, he was promoted to Archbishop of St. Louis. Known for his strict application of canon law, he made headlines for withdrawing Holy Communion from pro-abortion Catholic politicians. His leadership in these dioceses emphasized Eucharistic devotion, the promotion of vocations, and the restoration of traditional Catholic identity. Recognized as one of the Church's foremost legal minds, Benedict XVI appointed him prefect of the Apostolic Signatura in 2008 and created him a cardinal in 2010. In Rome, he upheld Catholic discipline with rigor, resisting pressures for compromise in matters of doctrine and liturgy. However, his tenure at the Signatura was not renewed in 2014, and Pope Francis reassigned him as patron of the Sovereign Military Order of Malta, a role that soon became largely ceremonial. Burke's relationship with Francis has been strained due to his outspoken criticism of elements of his pontificate, particularly on such issues as communion for the divorced and remarried, traditiones custodes, and synodality. A strong proponent of the traditional Latin Mass, devotion to the Eucharist, and Marian piety, Burke remains a central figure for Catholics seeking clarity and doctrinal consistency. His advocacy extends to pro-life causes, Catholic education, and the formation of priests. In 2021, Burke nearly died from COVID-19, but credits his recovery to the intercession of the Blessed Virgin Mary. He believes he was spared for a purpose yet to be revealed. Honestly, he's a solid choice. I don't share the hyperdulia that many trads give to Cardinal Burke, but I respect him greatly. He, like Erdő, comes from a canonical background and is quite serious about the application of the penalties laid out in canon law, which I very much am a fan of. He is a supporter of the Latin Mass, which is great. He has also supported the reforms of the Novus Ordo proposed by Cardinal Sarah, which is great. Although, one of my favorite aspects of Burke is his use of the spiritual sword against those Catholics who oppose the teaching of the Church in the public sphere, especially politicians. He even wrote a specific study of this issue called The Discipline Regarding the Denial of Holy Communion to Those Obstinately Persevering in Manifest Grave Sin, eventually writing a book titled Respecting the Body and Blood of the Lord, When Holy Communion Should Be Denied. Beside this, he has been quite vocal about the social kingship of Christ. He has also been quite careful not to fall into various excesses, such as the time that he criticized Vigano's accusations of heresy against Pope Francis, or the opposition he has expressed to the SSPX. While he is an excellent choice, it is hard to say that cardinals like Burke or Sarah have anything but a slim chance in the next conclave, save a miracle from heaven. Next is another excellent choice, Cardinal Muller. Born on December 31st, 1947 in Germany, he was made a cardinal in the year 2014 by Pope Francis. Born in 1947 into a devout Catholic family, He studied philosophy and theology at Mainz, Munich, and Freiburg. His background is almost a carbon copy of Benedict XVI's, with his early academic formation shaped by liberal German theologians, but his theological trajectory later aligning with conservative theologians. Muller earned a doctorate in 1977 with a dissertation on Dietrich Bonhoeffer's sacramental theology. Ordained in 1978, he combined pastoral ministry with academia, becoming a professor of dogmatics in Munich in 1986. He gained further prominence as a member of the International Theological Commission from 1998 to 2003, advising the Vatican on doctrinal matters. Pope St. John Paul II appointed him Bishop of Regensburg in 2002, and he was consecrated the following year. He modernized the diocese while defending Catholic doctrine against dissenting groups. In 2012, Benedict XVI named him prefect of the CDF, placing him at the heart of doctrinal governance. His tenure saw him presiding over the Pontifical Biblical Commission, the International Theological Commission, and Ecclesia Dei, the office responsible for relations with traditionalist communities. Pope Francis elevated him to the cardinalate in 2014, but declined to renew his CDF term in 2017, a move widely interpreted as a shift away from Muller's firm doctrinal positions. He has consistently upheld the teachings of Vatican II, but his recent positions have brought him closer to traditional Catholic circles. He strongly opposes the female diaconate, any relaxation of priestly celibacy, and doctrinal ambiguity on moral and sacramental issues. While critical of the SSPX in the past, he has since defended traditional Catholics, particularly against restrictions on the TLM. An outspoken critic of the synodal synodality and the German synodal way, Muller warns against doctrinal relativism and secular influences on church teaching. Politically, he is critical of globalist agendas, which he sees as promoting an anti-Christian worldview. Though cautious about directly confronting Pope Francis, he attributes many of the pontificate's missteps to the Pope's advisors, not to the Pope himself. Despite his dismissal from the CDF, Francis kept Muller engaged with minor curial appointments. His reputation as an honest broker and a fearless defender of Catholic doctrine has only grown, making him a respected, if polarizing, figure in the Church. Muller is definitely a solid choice and honestly might be the most likely of the trad cardinals to become Pope due to his good personal reputation and his global presence. Yet, one needs to be aware of two controversies that Muller has garnered. First, some accuse him of error on the teaching of the virginity of Our Lady in giving birth and birth pains. Second, some accuse him of error on the nature of the Eucharist. The only other questionable aspect that I could think of is the seeming lack of administrative and pastoral experience, since he has seemingly only filled theological appointments throughout his career. If Erdő and Burke are the canonist's choice, Muller is the theologian's choice. Next is Cardinal Ranjith. Born on November 15, 1947 in Sri Lanka, he was made a cardinal in the year 2012 by Pope Benedict XVI. He grew up in a devout Catholic family and was deeply influenced by his mother. He entered seminary at 18 and was sent to Rome, where he earned degrees in theology and sacred scripture. Ordained in 1975 by Pope St. Paul VI, he spent his early priesthood ministering to poor fishing communities, an experience that shaped his lifelong concern for the marginalized. He became a bishop in 1991. His international church career expanded when Pope St. John Paul II brought him to Rome in 2001 as adjunct secretary of Propaganda Fidei, and later as apostolic nuncio to Indonesia and East Timor. In 2005, Benedict XVI appointed him secretary of the Congregation for Divine Worship, where he worked to restore reverence in the liturgy and promote the reform of the Reform. He was made Archbishop of Colombo in 2009 and a cardinal in 2010. Throughout his tenure, he has revitalized catechesis, fostered priestly vocations, and restored traditional liturgical practices in Sri Lanka. For example, he banned altar girls in 2024. Ranjith aligns with Benedict XVI's vision for the Church, supporting the Second Vatican Council while advocating a return to authentic liturgical tradition. Though he favors a reverently celebrated Novus Ordo, he has encouraged wider use of the TLM. He upholds the Church's teaching on life, marriage, and sexuality, though these issues are less contested in Sri Lanka. He shares Francis's concern for the poor and environmental protection, endorsing ethical capitalism over socialism, along with allowing the death penalty in certain cases. Fluent in 10 languages, Ranjith is a strong global church figure with deep local credibility. His experience in governance, liturgical orthodoxy, and pastoral leadership makes him a compelling papal candidate, especially for those seeking a conservative, Benedict-aligned pope from the global south. Honestly, Ranjith is one of the best choices and could be a trad-aligned global south type figure. He has made positive comments about the SSPX in the past, even saying that if they were reconciled with the church, that he would happily send his seminarians to an SSPX seminary. Beside this, he has been a supporter of the death penalty, has opposed the denials of the inerrancy of Scripture, and has quite orthodox political theology. Pope Francis also seems to like Ranjith. Next, we have Cardinal Filoni, who is quite similar to Parolin as a diplomat. Born on April 15, 1946 in Italy, he was made a cardinal in the year 2012 by Benedict XVI. He was ordained a priest in 1970 and earned doctorates in philosophy and canon law. He also studied journalism, an uncommon background for a church diplomat. Filoni entered the Vatican diplomatic service in 1981, serving in Sri Lanka, Iran, Brazil, and the Philippines. His experience in Tehran during the Iran-Iraq War and in Hong Kong, where he worked to bridge relations between the Vatican and China's underground Catholic Church, cemented his reputation as a key Vatican figure in sensitive geopolitical areas. In 2001, he was appointed nuncio to Iraq and Jordan, and he famously remained in Baghdad during the 2003 US-led invasion, narrowly surviving a car bomb. His career in the Curia progressed rapidly. In 2007, he was named substitute of the Secretariat of State, effectively becoming the Pope's chief of staff and managing the daily affairs of the Holy See. 2011, Benedict XVI appointed him prefect of Propaganda Fide, a powerful position historically known as the Red Pope. Pope Francis elevated him to the rank of Cardinal Bishop in 2018, but unexpectedly transferred him in 2019 to serve as Grand Master of the Equestrian Order of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. He has continuously been an opponent of Israel. A staunch supporter of Vatican II, Filoni is also an advocate of Episcopal conferences in the Synod of Bishops, writing extensively on their role. He is associated with the Neo-Catechumenal Way, a movement known for its missionary zeal, but also controversial liturgical practices. While firm on church doctrine, he has a diplomatic and pragmatic approach. Cardinal Filoni is a hard figure to pin down on the hot-button issues, so it is hard to say how we ought to gauge him. One significant downside is the fact that he has never led a diocese, although he is an Italian, so I trust his administrative skills. It's really hard to say what I feel about him, considering his lack of public stance about basically anything that would reveal his dispositions, except his public support for Cardinal Zen. Next, we have Cardinal Sarah, who is quite similar to Burke in that everyone basically knows who he is. Born on June 15, 1945, in Guinea, he was made a cardinal in the year 2010 by Pope Benedict XVI. Info on Cardinal Sarah is pretty common and readily available, so I won't go into much detail. Born to converts from animism, he was ordained a priest in 1969 and later pursued advanced theological studies in Rome and Jerusalem. In 1979, at just 34, he was appointed an archbishop, making him the world's youngest bishop. He endured persecution under a Marxist dictatorship, which placed him on an assassination list. Despite this, he remained steadfast in his mission. Pope St. John Paul II appointed him secretary of the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples in 2001, and Pope Benedict XVI later elevated him to cardinal and named him president of the Pontifical Council Cor Unum in 2010. In 2014, Pope Francis appointed him prefect of the Congregation for Divine Worship and the Discipline of the Sacraments, a role he held until 2021. As prefect, Sarah championed reverence in the liturgy, encouraging the celebration of Mass ad Orientem, communion on the tongue, and the reform of the Reformed to correct post-Vatican II liturgical abuses, while preserving its genuine renewal. He strongly opposed intercommunion with non-Catholics and warned against secularist and relativist trends threatening the Church. Despite facing opposition within the Curia, he remained committed to restoring the sacred in Catholic worship. His writings have made him a global spiritual leader. His trilogy, God or Nothing, The Power of Silence, and The Day is Now Far Spent, earned him a devoted following. He has since authored The Catechism of the Spiritual Life and For Eternity, Restoring the Priesthood, addressing the crisis of faith and the need for renewal in the Church. Since his retirement, Sarah has become even more vocal. He has fiercely criticized the Vatican's restrictions on the TLM and was among the leading voices against fiducia supplicans. He also warned that the synod on synodality could undermine doctrinal clarity. His measured but forceful critique of modernist trends, combined with his evident personal sanctity, has led many to see him as a key figure in defending Catholic tradition. Despite all of this, he judiciously avoids direct criticism of Pope Francis. Now, while many have thrown their support behind Cardinal Sarah, it seems quite unlikely that he will become Pope, but crazier things have happened. Next, we have Cardinal Ouelette. Born on June 8, 1944 in Canada, he was made a cardinal in the year 2003 by Pope St. John Paul II. Raised in a practicing Catholic family, he initially pursued philosophy and theology at Laval in Montreal, before earning advanced degrees in Rome. He later taught in Colombia, Canada, and at the St. John Paul II Institute in Rome. Consecrated a bishop by Pope St. John Paul II in 2001, Ouelette became Archbishop of Quebec and Primate of Canada in 2002, before being created a cardinal in 2003. Known for his theological depth and pastoral sensibility, he has been a strong defender of priestly celibacy, traditional marriage, and humanae vitae. While firmly against women's ordination, he has supported a greater role for women in the Church. His tenure at the dicastery for bishops made him a key figure in global episcopal appointments. A contender in the 2013 conclave, he was seen as papabile, though he downplayed the possibility. His chances have diminished due to allegations of misconduct, strongly denied by him, and a legal dispute in France. A man of deep spirituality and Eucharistic devotion, Ouelette values solemn liturgy and supported Summorum Pontificum, working with the FSSP, showing openness to the TLM. He prioritizes unity, preferring diplomacy over public criticism, and has cultivated strong ties with Latin America, including Pope Francis. While his theological acumen, holiness, and leadership experience remain widely respected, his future influence in the Church may be more intellectual than administrative. Honestly, not a terrible choice, although it seems to be unlikely due to his age and allegations of misconduct, except perhaps as a compromise choice. He is a big supporter of clerical celibacy, having written a book on the issue, and a strong opponent of female clerics. Beside this, he has also taken an active role against the legalization of gay marriage, even speaking before the Canadian Senate on the issue. He has also published a letter apologizing for, quote, anti-Semitism, racism, indifference to First Nations, and discrimination against women and homosexuals, end quote. He is also known to have a devotion to St. Thomas Aquinas. Next, we have Cardinal Piacenza. Born on September 15, 1944 in Italy, he was made a cardinal in the year 2010 by Pope Benedict XVI. He was ordained a priest in 1969 by Cardinal Sarah, and quickly rose through the ranks, serving in multiple roles, including parish vicar, seminary spiritual director, university professor, and diocesan tribunal judge. In 1990, he was called to Rome to work in the Congregation for the Clergy, where he served for 2 decades, eventually becoming its prefect in 2010 under Benedict XVI. He was created cardinal the same year. He also held leadership positions in the Pontifical Commission for Cultural Heritage and Sacred Archaeology. In 2013, Pope Francis reassigned him as Major Penitentiary of the Apostolic Penitentiary, a role he held until his retirement in April 2024. A staunch defender of Catholic tradition, Cardinal Piacenza is unwavering on priestly celibacy, moral teaching, and liturgical reverence. He strongly opposes women's ordination and any form of, quote, homosexual culture in seminaries. His advocacy for the sacrament of confession and the spiritual care of migrants reflects his focus on the salvation of souls. He frequently emphasizes the need for conversion to the Catholic faith and for penance. He is also known to privately be a supporter of the TLM. He is quite a good option, although he is quite old, making him a much less likely choice. Lastly, we have Cardinal Bagnasco, who, interestingly enough, was ordained by the same man as the last cardinal. Born on January 14, 1943 in Italy, he was made a cardinal in the year 2007 by Pope Benedict XVI. He was ordained a priest in 1966 by Cardinal Giuseppe Siri, who ensured that Bagnasco remained close to the people through extensive pastoral work, rather than taking a bureaucratic path. For over 2 decades, he served as an assistant parish priest, while also teaching and working in youth ministry. Consecrated a bishop in 1998, he gained national prominence when appointed Archbishop of the Military Ordinariate of Italy in 2003, before returning to Genoa as Archbishop in 2006. Benedict XVI appointed him president of the Italian Episcopal Conference in 2007, a role he held until 2017. during which he became one of the leading voices defending church teaching in Italian society. His firm stance on abortion and marriage even led him to requiring bodyguards for his protection. He was later elevated to president of the Council of the Bishops' Conference of Europe, serving from 2016 to 2021. Bagnasco has been a strong defender of traditional Catholic teaching, upholding Humanae Vitae, opposing same-sex civil unions, rejecting the Casper proposal on communion for the remarried divorcees, defending priestly celibacy, and rejecting universalism. He is a supporter of the traditional Latin Mass and emphasizes the centrality of the Eucharist in addressing Europe's moral and spiritual decline. He has also called for greater transparency in church finances and strongly condemned clerical abuse cover-ups. Although officially retired since 2020, he remains active, having been called by the Vatican in 2021 to investigate abuse allegations in Poland. He continues to speak out on critical issues, especially regarding Europe's Christian identity and the need for moral clarity in an increasingly secularized world. While quite old and therefore a less realistic option, he is an excellent choice that I would be very happy with. Overall, I would be quite happy with Pizzaballa, Sturla, Eijk, Erdő, Bo, Burke, Muller, Ranjith, maybe Filoni, Sarah, Ouelette, Piacenza, or Bagnasco. Thus, over half of the options are quite solid. As for the rest of the cardinals, I would certainly be okay but not thrilled by Arborelius, Cardinal Aveline, Brislin, Parolin, or Koch. I would not be happy with Tolentino, Tagle, or Zuppi. Honestly, it is quite unlikely, contrary to popular belief, they will get a terrible pope in this conclave. Most of them seem pretty good, some of them seem okay but not great, while only a few seem positively bad. This, along with the circumstances of the conclave, make me quite confident in a good choice. Beside all of this, I believe in the Holy Spirit.